Good morning. Sitting in for Gretchen Ho, I'm Pauline Grizosa. It is Monday, the 14th of April, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. And here are the stories that matter today. As Holy Week begins, the social action arm of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, calls on candidates to take a break from political activities. Overseas voting for the midterm elections kicked off on Sunday, April 13. But COMELEC Chairman George Erwin Garcia said that as of Friday, only about 48,000 have enrolled for internet voting. And in sports, in the UAAP Season 87 Women's Volleyball Tournament, the UP Lady Fighting Maroons keep their Final Four hopes alive after beating the De La Salle University Lady Archers in 5 nail-biting sets on Sunday. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, Filipinos overseas have begun casting their votes for Bilang Pilipino 2025. Internet voting started yesterday, Sunday, for over 1.2 million Filipinos abroad, which will last until the end of voting hours in the Philippines on May 12. COMELEC Chairman George Garcia said that as of Friday, only about 48,000 have enrolled for internet voting. The poll body initiated a test online voting to familiarize overseas voters of this feature, a system that the COMELEC first adopted this election cycle. And with less than 30 days before the election day, political analysts say the Senate race is becoming increasingly unpredictable. UST Department of Political Science Chairman Professor Dennis Coronacion told The Big Story that allies of former President Rodrigo Duterte appear to be gaining momentum. This as they benefit from the sympathy generated by recent events involving the former president.
I think it's quite obvious that considering the coincidence, these big gainers achieved their current position right after, the arrest of the former president. And this never happened before in the past surveys, except, of course, in the case of Senator Bongo. I think he was already on the #1 position in the Okta survey in February.
Meanwhile, in an interview with 1PH, sa totoo lang, UP Political Science Professor Jean Encinas Franco said she believes that voters are still looking for substance among candidates.
I'm very sure meron pa rin nag-iisip ng gano'n, Kaya lang, sa kasalukuyan, as the surveys reflect, parang hindi nagmamatch. Pero, hope springs eternal. Snapshot lang naman ito nung kung kailan sila tinanong. Pwedeng kinabukasan, meron silang nakilalang ng kampanya at nagustuhan nila. So, pwedeng iboboto nila, magbago mga isip nila. So, ito yung pwedeng mangyari.
And now let's get more insights this Monday morning on election-related developments. Joining us via Zoom is Professor Eric De Torres, Chairman of the University of the East Department of Political Science. Good morning, Professor Eric, and thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for having me in your show.
All right, ito na nga, Prof. We're less than a month before the midterm elections. I wanted to ask you, do you agree with the sentiments of other political analysts when they say that this senatorial race is already becoming increasingly unpredictable?
I would agree with the political analyst, Dr. Dennis Coronacion and Dr. Jean Franco. And, the way that we intend to look at it as of this point in time is that there's really a shift in terms of the momentum precisely because of the mode or the manner by which, what happened during the arrest of the former President Rodrigo Duterte. And what is actually very challenging right now is how the public would be able to shift the discourse specifically on issue-based or programmatic manner by which they demand candidates, may it be from the national down to the local level. As you can see in the national level, the manner or the preference seems to be based on the Duterte Marcos conflict or challenge. So yun yung medyo hamon sa ating mga botante ngayon kung paano ibabalik yung diskurso pagdating doon sa pagdemand. Ano ba yung plataforma de gobyerno? Ano ba yung legislative agenda ng ating mga tumatakbong kandidato lalo na sa pagkasenador?
And yun na nga, Prof, I mean, would you agree when they say that itong aresto nga ni former President Rodrigo Duterte has already become a central issue dito sa ating midterm elections?
Yes, kitang-kita natin yan nung nakaraang dalawang survey. Biglang umangat na yung standing ni Senator Bongo. Umangat na rin din yung posisyon ni Senator Bato de la Rosa. And kung mapapansin din natin ay may posibilidad din na pumasok yung mga nasa ibaba before na hindi naman napapansin that tulad ni Congressman Rodante Marcoleta na may tsansa. Ganun din pagdating doon sa mga iba pang kandidato ng PDP na kung saan very much associated sa partido ng former President Rodrigo Duterte.
And Prof, I wanted to zero in particularly dito kay Senator Bato de la Rosa, kasi grabe yung significance ng kanyang gain, particularly in the latest Pulse Asia survey. I mean, how unusual is that for a candidate to gain that much support with only less than a month left before the midterm elections? What would you attribute that to?
Well, of course, that would basically, of course, be attributed to also the very issue that he might be arrested again. They're waiting perhaps whether or not the ICC would provide arrest for that matter. So yung exposure niya ngayon lalo na, and then very much associated of course to former President Rodrigo Duterte, is the very key consideration by which biglang angat or biglang tumaas talaga yung rating ni Senator Bato de la Rosa.
Pero Prof, sabi nga nila, 'di ba, public sympathy is very difficult to measure. Sa survey hindi naman tatanungin kung naawa ka ba or so and so forth. But what do you make of this particular shift? Is it the Duterte group, the supporters solidifying their support for not just the PDP laban, ito sila Senator Bongo, but pati yung mga kaalyado nila, basically all the candidates associated or allied with the former president?
Yeah, you're correct. It's very difficult to measure in terms of sympathy, but it's a narrative game. It's the manner by which how the narrative is actually being used or portrayed to the people, especially the battle in terms of the social media and traditional media as well. So the key consideration is how do we make public become critical, especially with the advent of fake news, misinformation, disinformation, and more importantly, I always argue it's the malinformation in terms of how the people or how the electorate can become critical about these issues primarily. So we will be witnessing at least a month before the election that this and malinformation would be intensified so as to frame a particular narrative. And the fundamental challenge there is how do the Filipino people will become critical about it?
Pero ito, Prof, you have the PDP Laban candidates gaining traction in surveys leading up to the polls, but you also have Senator Amy Marcos, who has been very vocal about questioning the legality of the rest of the former president, but still she is declining in midterm polls. What do you make of that?
Yeah, interestingly, you may call it really as Senator Amy as a close ally of the Dutertes, but I think what is being thought about by the people is the timing, right? Not everybody is like thinking that or feeling or felt the sincerity of the senator, but rather it's really more of a political show or a political game in terms of not being able to get for example enough support, then might as well conduct a hearing. And the way that we tend to look at it as such is because of the Visayas and the Mindanao bloc. So we have to understand that the Duterte's support are coming from this major islands in our country. So for Senator Amy, strategically, doing this would be able to get or muster enough support, especially from the South.
So, Prof, nag-backfire ba yon? I mean, kasi you have Senator Amy Marcos leading the Senate hearings, di ba? Nakatatlo na nga po tayo. Did this not work in her favor? I mean, yun na nga, she's been very vocal about questioning it. Even the line of questioning dun sa mga opisyal natin, di ba, has been very straightforward. Pero it's not reflecting sa mga survey.
Yeah, it seems so. Pero let's see, we still have 1 month. If something really substantial, and of course there are some groups are really challenging Senator Amy with her recommendation, what would be next, something that would be substantive and concrete, that would really say that the arrest is indeed illegal, what's next. So people are looking for something concrete, and to really see her sincerity, whether or not she is a strong supporter of the Dutertes.
All right. What about Alianza bets? In contrast, several administration-backed candidates, professors such as Erwin Tulfo, Tito Soto, Bong Revilla, Lito Lapid, Camille Villar, have experienced a statistical decline, just basing on the last survey and compared to their performance in February. What factors might be contributing to this shift in support for these Alianza bets, Prof?
Well, the number one that we can really attribute it is because of the conflict. If you will also notice, the collateral with the conflict between the Dutertes and the Marcos are their candidates, specifically the candidates of the Alianza. So you can relatively see the steady decline, although not really much of a considerable percentage, but the candidates, senatorial candidates from the Alianza, can very much feel the effect of the conflict between the two families, especially when you talk about it. And again, I would like to reiterate, strategically, you need the Visayas and the Mindanao bloc, which we know for a fact that this is the bailiwick of the Dutertes, and they have strong support still. So we can see that the momentum has already shifted to the Duterte senatorial candidates. But of course, there are some candidates naman within the PDP are really more challenging. But if you can see the pattern that Philip Salvador is somehow gaining momentum, Rodante Marcoleta, as what I have said, is also possibly can enter the Magic 12 for that matter. So the collateral really is the Alianza candidates because of this conflict between the Duterte and the Marcoses.
Well, Prof, you did mention Visayas and Mindanao, right? Is it safe to say that these areas, these regions, will really shape the outcome of the midterm elections this year?
Oh yes, definitely. It will really shape, primarily because, as we all know, that the northern bloc is steady, form part of the momentum of the Alianza, especially they have the Marcoses as enough political capital in the north, but it's a different story for the Visayas as well as the Mindanao bloc.
And Professor, what about, you have also Secretary Benhur Abalos and Senator Francis Tolentino struggling to gain momentum in the survey. Why do you think their numbers still remain low? What are you seeing in their campaign messaging?
I think well, of course, I think for Senator Abalos or former Secretary Abalos is a failure to capitalize of the exposure when he was still a DILG secretary. Though the awareness is basically there, you have witnessed, I have seen or observed that there are many, tarpaulins and
along EDSA, Prof.
Yeah, along EDSA. And I mean, even in the countryside, you can see the posters and the tarpaulins of Secretary Abalos. But the messaging is quite, challenging in terms of walang and this is just my point of view, that parang kulang doon sa manner na kung saan maipapakita niya talaga yung pagiging masa niya. For that matter, and he's framing himself as masa, tagapagtanggol ng mga mahihirap, but kulang in terms of yung how people can really associate themselves with Secretary Abalos for that matter. On the other hand, for Senator Tolentino naman, Senator Tolentino is the classic example wherein nung tumawid siya sa alyansa, doon nawala talaga yung Visayas at saka Mindanao block niya. Kitang-kita doon sa pattern ng paano siya nanalo last 2022. Ang nagbigay ng boto talaga sa kanya was the Mindanao and the Visayas block, especially because of him running under the ticket of the former President Rodrigo Duterte.
But Prof, in your opinion, do you think the President Bongbong Marcos, can he still make a difference in the candidacy of his senatorial lineup using his political machinery in these final weeks leading up to May 12?
Yeah, it's still possible. The concentration really is, they have to be very much strategic. And the president will be using enough, or will be at this juncture, in he really wants to get 12-0 or 11-0 for that matter, he will use much political capital for these elections. The only question is it enough to be able to bolster, some of the candidates under his Alianza team? Or we can witness basically 4 or probably, potentially 3 or 4 potentially candidates from the PDP entering the Magic 12 for that matter.
Speaking of the Magic 12, I wanted to ask also, Prof, itong si Bam Aquino, former Senator Bam Aquino, performing well in surveys. Maasahan ba natin that will translate to votes and him really, winning a Senate seat in this midterm elections?
I do hope so. Because if you notice, like Bam and Senator Bam and Senator Kiko Pangilinan, they're seasoned senators who basically have already passed enough laws, pending bills or filed bills that are very much relevant for the country. However, it's something that I would like to go back and reiterate that, it became a Duterte Marcos issue rather than something that would, discuss about programs, advocacies, and, possible legislative agenda that this senatorial candidates should and basically focus for our electorate. And with, not to mention, with Senator Bam and Senator Kiko Pangilinan, you can really see that they are really on the grounds. Mas nakikisalamuha sila sa tao kasi yun yung tingin kong failure nung previous campaign. The Duterte campaign, especially 2016-2019 with the advent of Senator Bongo, more on grounds approach talaga yung pakikisalamuha sa tao. And alam mo naman sa kultura natin dito sa Pilipinas, it's something that is really personal. So yun yung medyo approach na ginagawa ni Senator Kiko at saka ni Senator Bam sa kanilang approach sa kanilang kampanya ngayon.
Last 2 questions for me, Professor. Given these shifts and developments, do you see that voters will be using itong tinatawag nga na bullet voting, or kumbaga yung hindi nila pupunuin yung all 12 senatorial candidates when they vote in their ballots? Is that the behavior we're going to be seeing in these coming elections?
Oh yes, definitely. Because there are some of the candidates naman, like for example, Senator Soto, Senator Ping, hindi mo na talaga yan hindi mo na talaga yan matatalo. Babagsak man yung numero nila, bababa man for quite some time, pero makakapasok pa rin din sila. And there are also, candidates naman din dun sa kabila, like sa PDP, na potentially pwede talagang makapasok din. Yung pattern ng behavior or voting preference ng mga Pilipino, usually hindi naman nagso-solid vote talaga na 12-0 or 11-0 siya for that matter, or especially pertaining to a particular political party. So talagang mix yan, depende doon sa personality, which is also a reflection on the kind of political party system that we have in our country.
And finally, Professor, with less than a month left before May 12, how much weight should we be putting on these surveys? Is there still room for changes? How unpredictable can this race get even more so?
Yeah, perhaps there could be a slight, but I think more on for me, I would like to call on the electorate to vote and choose wisely, engage our politicians, may it be from the national down to the local, and let us demand for programs of actions, advocacy, because I think this is the only way that we can, really see that there will be changes in our country by allowing candidates, okay, to give us concrete action plans. And later on, let's decide whether or not they are indeed worthy of our votes.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning and sharing your insights with us. That was Professor Eric De Torres, Chairman of the University of the East Political Science Department. Thank you, Professor. Now, in other news, the Holy Week exodus is well underway, with the transportation chief expecting over 150,000 passengers flocking daily to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. DOTR Secretary Vince Dizon said he has coordinated with NAIA's private operator to ensure the convenience of passengers. With foot traffic reaching 150,000 daily, NAIA has assigned additional personnel at the check-in counters, doubled driveway lanes, and has also fixed its restrooms. Well, passengers have already started to flock bus terminals ahead of the Holy Week holidays. And now let's check in on the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, or PTEX, where our mobile journalist Evan Tarinque joins us. Good morning, Evan. Gaano na ba karami mga tao dyan ngayon? At kamusta naman ang seguridad dyan sa PTEX?
Pauline, good morning. Lunes Santo na, kaya naman nagsimula ng mag-uwian ang mga kapatid natin sa kanilang mga lalawigan para doon magdiwang ng Semana Santa. Sa mga oras na ito, maluwag-luwag pa ang sitwasyon dito sa loob ng Parañaque Integrated Terminal o PITX. Pero may ilang pa rin maaga na mapabiyahe, kaya maaga nagpunta dito sa terminal para makasigurado ng ticket pauwi sa kanilang lugar. Yung isang pasahero nga na ating nakausap ay 6:30 pa lang na umaga ay nandito na para bumili ng ticket na babiyahe naman mamayang alas 9 ng umaga. Ayun, sa pamunuan ng PITX, mas mainam raw na mag-book na in advance, no, para hindi na mahirapan makakuha ng tickets, no. Mahirap kasing umasa lalo na pagdating ng rush hour o pagdating ng palapit ng Semana Santa, lalo may hirapan makapag-book ng ticket at maging chance passenger na. Ngayong umaga nga ay nasa 20,000 na pasahero na ang dumaan dito sa terminal pauwi sa kanilang mga lugar. Pinapaalalahanan ng publiko na bawal pa rin ang pagdadala ng mga ipinagbabawal na bagay gaya ng matutulis na gamit, baril at flammable materials. Sa pinakahuling tala kasi ng pamunuan, nasa kulang-kulang 200 na ang mga nakumpiskang ipinagbabawal na bagay. Naglagay din ng mga assistance desk sa iba't ibang bahagi ng terminal para tumulong sa mga pasahero. Inaasahan naman mag-iikot ngayong umaga dito sa PITX si DOTR Secretary Vince Dizon para siguraduhin ang kalagayan ng mga mananakay at ang mga roadworthiness ng mga bus na babiyahe ngayon. Pauline?
Pero Evan, itong mga biyahe ba dyan sa PITX, meron na bang mga fully booked ngayong Monday morning pa lang, at kung chance passenger man, makakasakay pa rin ba? I mean, ano ba yung probability? Talaga bang wala nang masasakyan or meron naman kahit papano?
Yes, Pulino, additional nga, nagdagdag nga ang LTFRB na nasa 1,000, more than 1,000 na special permits para sa mga bus na babiyahe sa kanilang mga probinsya. Kanina nag-ikot naman tayo sa mga ticket booths dito sa loob ng terminal, hindi pa naman ganoon kahaba yung pila. Yung isang pasahero na ating nakausap, nakabili naman daw siya kaagad ng ticket. Kaya nga inagahan niya punta kasi in-expect niya na maya-maya talagang siksikan na at marami ng tao. And so far, sa ngayon, mabilis pa naman makabili ng ticket. Pero mas okay pa rin daw mag-book in advance para hindi na mahirapan kung sakali magsimula na talagang dumagsa muli yung mga tao. Pauline?
Oo nga, Eva, no? Lunes pa lang pero marami na yung mga tao. Dagsaan na rin sila dyan sa PITX. Pero kailan ba inaasahan yung bulk ng mga pasahero na pupunta dyan, na babiyahe pauwi sa kanilang mga probinsya? At may estimation ba yung pamunuan ng PITX dyan kung kailan nga ito at gaano karaming tao ang aasahan sa araw na yun?
Yes, Pulino, isa nga talaga sa pinaka nag-uwian is nitong weekend kung saan nga nasa more than 160,000 yung umuwing per day na umuwi ng mga pasahero nitong weekend. And naasahan nga na pagdating ng Wednesday, yung huling araw ng pasok. Dahil yung iba kasi talagang Wednesday pa. Yung huling araw ng pasok ko, inaasahan na pagdating ng Wednesday ay talagang dadagsa ulit o dadami ulit yung tao dito. And pagbalik naman ulit ng susunod na linggo, kung saan naman mag-uwian naman na papalik dito sa Metro Manila yung mga tao. So yun yung mga dates talaga na inaasahan na babalik yung mga tao bago talaga magsimula itong Huwebes Santo at pagkatapos ng Easter Sunday. Pauline.
Okay, Evan, para sa mga pabiyahe pa lamang o kaya sa Wednesday pa lamang babiyahe, ano ba yung mga payo na mabibigay sa mga commuters? At saan ba sila pwede mag-book ng itong advance online ticket?
Polino, yun nga, isa talaga sa pinaka-importante is makapag-advance booking itong ating mga kapatid na babiyahe sa mga susunod na araw. So usually makikita naman, pwede naman silang mag-book online sa iba't ibang bus companies na nasa loob dito ng terminal ng PITX. So marami naman yan. Siguraduhin nila na mag-advance booking. And siyempre, yung pagdating nila dito sa terminal, meron tayong tinatawag na 2-hour rule. Bago umalis yung bus, dapat 2 hours before or 1 hour before nandito na sa loob ng terminal para hindi ka maiwanan ng bus na sasakyan mo. And huling-huli, pinagbabawal talaga yung pagdadala nga wag na subukan yung magdala ng mga pinagbabawal, gaya nga ng mga tulis sa bagay, ng kutsilyo, at iba pa mga flammable materials. Dahil sa entrance pa lang, dito pa lang sa entrance ng PITX ay mahigpit na yung seguridad at hindi na yan papapapasukin. Pauline.
Alright, well, patuloy natin babantayan ang sitwasyon dyan. But for now, maraming salamat, mobile journalist Ivan Tarinque. Don't go away. We will be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Besides NAIA and PITX, passengers are now flocking to Batangas Port for those bound for Mindoro, Romblon, Aklan, and Capiz. And to get an update on the situation there, we have this morning mobile journalist Amy Atienza joining us live at the Batangas Port. Good morning, Amy. Kamusta na ba ang sitwasyon dyan sa Batangas Port ngayong Lunes ng umaga?
Good morning, Pauline. Nandito nga tayo sa Batangas Port ngayon. And so far, kung makikita mo sa aking likuran, hindi pa naman ganun ka dami yung tao. Pero inaasahan daw na later, after lunch, mas nadami pa yan. Though dito sa may area na to, makikita natin, may pila dyan, papunta ng Romblon. At doon napakarami na ng pila. Humahaba na nga yan simula kaninang around 6 a.m. hanggang 8 a.m. So ngayon, ang paalala na lang talaga ng mga otoridad, Polino, huwag magdala ng flammable materials, pati ng mga patalim. And kung maaari, at least 3 hours before ng target na alis, doon pumunta dito sa Batangas Port, Polino.
Pero Amy, kamusta naman ang mga biyahe? Fully booked na ba? Makakabili pa rin ba ang mga pasahero dyan ng ticket?
Sorry, Pauline. Sorry, nawawala yung signal.
Oo. Amy, kamusta yung mga biyahe naman dyan ngayon, Parang hindi pa masyadong maraming mga tao, pero fully booked na ba yung mga biyahe? Yung mga pasahero, makakapili pa ba sila ng mga ticket dyan sa Batangas Port?
Yes, maaari pa naman silang bumili. Doon nagkakaubusan na nga ngayong umaga yung ilan sa mga tickets papuntang Romblon pa lang naman. Pero dun sa ibang lugar, katulad na lang ng Aklan, sa Oriental Mindoro, pati na rin sa Puerto Galera, pwede pa naman daw. At may ilan pa nga ditong mga nakausap ako na naisipan lang daw nilang mag-day trip sa Mindoro, kaya sila nandito ngayon. So, iba't iba yung purpose nila sa pagpunta nila dito. So, yun yung mga dapat pang abangan dito sa Batangas Port. Pero so far, ang inaasahan din is around 20K daw yung pasaherong pupunta dito, dadagsa dito for today. And visual naman daw dito sa Batangas Port na busy day talaga ang Monday. Pero yung 20,000 more than the expected talaga yan na usual day for a Monday. So, kung titingnan naman natin yung total statistics din para sa lahat ng ports dito sa Pilipinas, ayon yan sa Philippine Ports Authority, lagpas 100,000 naman yung inaasahan ng mga sea passengers natin for this Monday. So, mas dadami pa yan sa darating na araw, lalo na dahil matatapos na yung pasukan ng ilang mga estudyante, pati na rin yung mga nasa office. So, mag-expect tayo na mas marami yung tao na magsisiuwian bukas, pati na rin sa Wednesday, Pauline.
Pero Amy, kailan ba yung inaasahang maging pinaka-busy ang Batangas Port? Sa Wednesday rin ba yan?
Yes, Pauline, actually sa Wednesday nila inaasahan na mas madami pa nga yung tao dahil meron pa rin mga pasok yung ilang eskwelahan dito sa Batangas City. Meron din may pasok pa rin yung mga high school sa Lipa City. So, yung mga cities dito, pati na rin mga municipalities dito sa Batangas, hindi pa raw din talaga tapos yung school, pati work. So, around Wednesday inaasahan dahil nga hindi lang yung mga magsisiuwian sa probinsya, pero yung mga nais na rin magbakasyon sa iba't ibang probinsya na dadaan dito sa Batangas Port, inaasahan na rin nila, Pauline.
So, as of today, Amy, would you know kung nagdagdag na ba ng mga biyahe dyan sa Batangas Port or hindi pa naman?
So far, wala pa tayong confirmation kung nagdagdag na sila ng biyahe. Pero patuloy naman yung announcements nila na every 30 minutes may umaalis dito na roro o kaya barko papunta nga doon sa destination nila at maayos naman yung security dito. Nagdagdag actually sila puli ng mga tauhan. Pati na rin dahil medyo bago-bago itong Batangas Port, modernize nila. Para naman sa mga pasahero na medyo matagal pa yung biyahe, marami ding mga stalls dito. And pwede kang mag-intay talaga. So, ready naman yung Batangas Port dyan para sa mga ganong instances na marami nga mag-intay pa din.
Oh, Amy, baka pwede mo rin pakita, if you can, ano ba yung mga process na dadaanan ng mga biyahero dyan sa Batangas Port since bago nga siya? Or just give us a glimpse, ano ba yung itsura nung ticketing area or where you're standing from?
Actually, yung nasa likuran ko, ito na yung ticketing booth. So, itong area na to, actually, papunta to ng Puerto Galera. So, ang sistema ngayon, Pauline, dahil nga medyo kalmado pa naman yung sitwasyon, pwede kang bumili agad ng ticket dyan. And then, after that, pupunta ka dun sa terminal station dahil may terminal fee na 30 pesos para makapasok ka mismo dun sa zone area dito. Ito yung zone 1. Nung Batangas Port. So, yung mga may parang barricades dyan ka papasok and doon ka na mag-iintay ng flight mo. And dito naman sa mga ticketing areas po din, actually, meron din ticket prices na. So, ang paalala din talaga ay magdala ng ID para sa mga estudyante, senior citizens, persons with disability, para nga makakuha ng discount. Kasi yung sa Romblon area, 1,000 pesos to 1,200 pesos yung ticket. So, pag meron kang ID, makaka-discount ka dyan, merong 700 pesos na lang para sa mga senior citizens. So, yun yung mga paalala ng otoridad dito.
Ayan, very organized as of this Monday pa, no? But for now, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Amy Atienza joining us from the Batangas Port. Safe travels to all of you out there. Now, in other news, families of victims of former President Rodrigo Duterte's drug war celebrated Palm Sunday along with other faithful. Here's that report.
Filipino Catholics ushered in the Holy Week by waving their palaspas or palm fronds on Sunday. Manila Archbishop Jose Cardinal Advincula led the Mass at the Manila Cathedral. It was followed by a procession into the church to commemorate Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem. Devotees also flocked to Quiapo Church. Among those who attended the Mass were the families of the victims of extrajudicial killings.
Hindi ko alam kung sino yung pinaniniwalaan ng Diyos at sana maniwala siya na merong Diyos. At sana itong pagtitiwala natin na merong Diyos, magpangyari na magbalik loob tayo, humingi tayo ng tawad sa Panginoon.
Human rights advocate Father Flavio Villanueva said, the healing process has begun for those who have been seeking justice. He added that this is the time to reflect, especially for former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Kung ikaw'y nasa piitan ngayon, panalangin, pagninilay, pagsisisi, ang panawagan marahil sa iyo.
Now, supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte gathered in The Hague for a prayer vigil marking his first month in detention at the International Criminal Court. Here's that report.
Through prayers, lighting of candles, and singing, supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte marked his first month in detention at the International Criminal Court. The prayer vigil was held just outside the ICC. Their message was clear and unwavering: bring Duterte home. Among those present was Duterte's common-law wife, Hanilet Avancenia.
Pinapalakas lang namin ang loob niya. Sabi ko, pray lang tayo, pray lang tayo. Maano pa rin ang pananampalataya niya sa Diyos. Sabi niya, kung ano daw ang will ng Panginoon sa kanya. Ayun ang
Hanilet's simple request is for consideration for the 80-year-old former president.
Awa na lang. Total, nagserbisyo naman yan, di ba?
The vigil also saw the presence of key Duterte allies. Former Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea made his first public appearance since undergoing a heart procedure in The Hague. Former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque returned to the site after a week-long absence. He once again criticized the Marcos administration for allowing Duterte's arrest and transfer to The Hague. Roque claimed he now expects more harassment, especially after being linked to the controversial Pulveron video.
Dahil ang Pulveronic video po ang nagbigay patunay sa matagal nang sinasabi ni Tatay Digong na matagal na niyang alam na gumagamit ng pinagbabawal na droga ang Marcos Jr.
Roque also called on police and the military to cooperate on what he calls their fight against the administration in support of Duterte, whereas the family simply calls on supporters to continue praying for the former president.
We're just going to pause for a quick break. Morning Matters will be right back. Keep it here. Welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and this is Morning Matters. Election candidates are urged to take a pause from political activities during the Holy Week. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines Social Action Arm, Caritas Philippines, said this should be the time for, quote, deep reflection and discernment. They also called on candidates to uphold the integrity of the electoral process. But the COMELEC told Philstar.com that campaigning is prohibited only on Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday. Well, amid increasing political activities, where does the Catholic Church stand and how should the faithful respond? To answer that, we are now joined by Father Jerome Ceciliano, Executive Secretary of the CBCP's Committee on Public Affairs. Good morning, Father, and thank you so much for joining us this Monday morning on Morning Matters.
Hi, good morning, and to the televiewers, magandang umaga din po sa kanilang lahat.
Yes, Father. Well, it is the Holy Week already, and the Church has urged candidates to take a pause during this period. Tell us, Father, the significance of that and your message to candidates during this Holy Week.
Well, as already told by the Social Action Arm of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, there is also a need to somehow discern from among the candidates so that they can really be motivated on how really to serve the people. And I think this Holy Week commemoration of the Passion and death of Jesus should be enough also to give them some idea on how really it is to serve the citizenry. when Jesus Christ offered his life, it is actually the highest form of service and sacrifice. And I guess the politicians should take from that. So they are venturing or entering politics not for personal gain or personal interests, but they are entering politics really to serve the people.
A period for discernment and self-reflection. But Father, you also have the COMELEC saying that campaign is only prohibited on Maundy Thursday and Good Friday. What are your thoughts on that, Father Jerome?
Well, the COMELEC has already ruled, and so therefore the candidates are bound to follow that order coming from the COMELEC itself. And so those 2 days of respite should be enough for the candidates, I think, practically to rest, and at the same time to join also in some of the liturgical and sacramental celebrations in their churches. So perhaps this is also a time for them to pray, and at the same time really to reconnect with loved ones. And then, of course, as mentioned already a while ago, to really deepen their understanding of the vocation that they have as politicians. So yung 2 days na yon, palagay ko naman ay sapat na rin para at least makasama yung mga kandidato din sa mga gawain ngayon sa mga simbahan.
Pero Father, what if we see politicians appearing in religious events? Sometimes, diba, baka gamitin pa itong campaign strategy. How does the church respond to that? And is there a way to really balance campaign efforts while still observing our practices, our traditions during the Holy Week?
Well, if there are politicians, for example, will be attending church services and then makikipagkamay, di ba? Tapos makikipagchikahan doon sa loob ng simbahan. Palagay ko, matured na naman ng mga politicians natin. Hindi na naman siguro nila gagawin yan. But if there will be candidates who will be doing that, we have people naman from inside the church who can actually tell them the proper decorum. So ito naman ay hindi yung basta-basta na lang napaalisin sila. Baka naman bubulungan lang para at least may respeto naman sila, may papakita doon sa sacredness ng mga gawain. And then kung sakali man, for example, na napupunta sila doon para yun nga mag-join sa aming mga celebration, meron na kami presumption syempre na they are there in good faith. So hindi yung iisipin kagad namin na ando doon sila para mangampan. So to be fair naman to them, we are going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they are also Catholics, kaya nga nagpunta doon. Kaya gusto din siguro nilang magdasal. So, ibibigay namin sa kanila ay yung benefit.
Well, Father, we only have also less than a month before the midterm elections on May 12, and the Church has called on for candidates to uphold the integrity of the electoral process. Tell us, Father, about the role that the Church intends to play in this election process. But we do know, di ba, syempre, Father, meron naman yung separation of church and state. But tell us the role of the church in this midterm elections in ensuring that we will have a fair and clean election process.
Very clearly, ang papel ng simbahan dito ay voters education. At ang simbahan naman ay partner din ng PPCRV. So yung voters education, ginagawa ito in partnership with PPCRV para ma-inform natin at saka matulungan natin sa pagdi-discern yung mga botante. And of course, ang meron din kami dito is moral suasion. So what it means that hindi naman kami talaga makakapwersa sa mga botante na ito yung iboto ninyo. But then in our teachings, in our preaching, for example, pwede din naman kami na makapag-reach out dito sa mga botante para at least yung mga pointers na dapat din na matandaan, dapat din na ma-consider, ay mapapakinggan nila. Meron din kami mga tinatawag na circles of discernment wherein our parishioners are invited to gauge, and then to analyze, to assess, and then pray over our decisions to make this coming election. So ito lang ang mga papel na pwedeng gampanan ng simbahan. Perhaps some people may actually ask, pwede ba na ang simbahan na mag-endorse ng mga kandidato? Well, to that question, negative ang sagot dyan. We cannot just endorse a candidate. Because if we do that, we are compromising also our stand as a church. May mga pagkakataon yan, balang araw na yung mga polisiya na gagawin ng mga kandidato ay hindi talaga tugma sa tinuturo ng simbahan. So kapag nangyari yun at in-endorse ng simbahan yung kandidato na yun, so ando doon papasok yung compromises. So we don't do that. Kaya uulitin ko, moral suasion, voters education, and then yung circles of discernment, yan ang mga papel na pwedeng gampanan ng simbahan ngayon.
Pero ito nga, Father, Palm Sunday already marked the beginning of the Holy Week. And for many Filipinos, Father, it's both a religious and a cultural tradition. Can you help us understand, Father, the significance of the Holy Week and how uniquely do we celebrate this compared to the rest of the world as Filipinos?
Well, yung Holy Week kasi commemoration yun, of the passion of Jesus Christ. When we speak of the passion, we speak of the suffering, the carrying of the cross, the crucifixion, and then of course, magko-culminate yan doon sa Easter Sunday. Bakit mahalaga yung commemoration na to? Well, for us to realize that there's somebody who offered his life para tayo ay magkaroon ng buhay. At hindi ito yung buhay na with all the practical considerations. Ito yung buhay na tinatawag natin na walang hanggan, kaligtasan. So yung mga practical considerations dito na pag nag-Holy Week nag-commemorate ba kami ng Holy Week, hindi na kami magkakasakit, magkakaroon ba kami ng trabaho, magkakaroon ba kami ng pera, yayaman ba kami, perhaps we should go beyond thinking those things. Dito ang gusto natin na ipakita yung appreciation natin sa ginawa ng Diyos na iligtas tayo at mabigyan nga tayo ng buhay na walang hanggan. At hindi lang yun, kinakailangan din na sa pagsali natin sa mga gawain dito sa simbahan ngayong Holy Week, sa pag-commemorate natin itong passion nga ng ating Panginoon, maintindihan natin, ganito pala dynamics ng buhay. Meron talagang kahirapan, meron challenges, meron talagang pagsubok, meron kang mga kakaharaping intriga, meron talaga na, alam mo yung malulugmo ka. But at the end of it all, alam mo na merong Diyos na nauna na nagpakasakit para sa iyo. Kumbaga, itong nangyayari sa atin ay pakikiisa natin sa pagpapakasakit ng Panginoon. At hindi na nagtatapos doon sa krus ang ginawa ni Jesus, kundi ito ay nakita natin may empty tomb. Anong ibig sabihin ng empty tomb? Na wala doon si Jesus, buhay pala. So may buhay after ng pinagdaanan natin ng mga pagsubok na yan, mga pagpapakasakit sa buhay natin.
But Father, with our modern generation and our fast-paced lifestyle, has the Church observed any differences in how Filipinos have been observing the Holy Week? And yung mga tradisyon po ba ng bisita iglesia, yung mga pabasa, yung significance po nun sa ating kultura bilang mga Filipino Catholics?
Okay, yung unahin natin kung meron bang nabago. Palagay ko, masidhi pa rin yung participation ng mga tao sa ganitong mga Holy Week observances. Let's say, for example, what happened yesterday. You were talking about Palm Sunday. Ang dami-daming tao. And this is totally different from the ordinary Sundays that we had in the past. Pag Palm Sunday, kita natin yung pagdagsa ng mga mananampalataya. So doon pa lang, yung kanilang attendance, pagpapahayag na to na, talagang nagko-commemorate pa rin talaga yung mga Pilipino, lalong-lalo ng mga Katoliko. Hindi nila pinalalagpas to. Ngayon, meron ba tayong nakita na pagbabago sa kanila? Palagay ko, yung pagbabago na to ay naging for the better. Kasi yung awareness nila, alam mo yung awareness na yung pagbibisita iglesia, hindi lang pala yung pupunta ako dito sa isang simbahan, magdadasal kami bilang isang pamilya. Alam mo yung nakita ko ngayon na pagbabago? Sa kanilang pag-iikot, may mga dala-dala silang mga pagkain. At yung pagkain na yun, hindi sila kumakain. Dinidistribute nila sa mga street children, mga street dwellers. So yun lang, napakalaking pagbabago na to. Dahil kung noon, pupunta lang tayo sa simbahan, ilang simbahan ba bibisitahin natin, magdadasal tayo ng Daan ng Cruz, then magdadasal tayo sa Altar of Repose. Ngayon, may charitable component na. And this has been, I think, being done, for quite so many years. Kaya sabi ko, buhay yung diwa ng pagiging Kristiyano ng mga taong ito. Dahil ang tinuturo naman namin, hindi lang dapat tayo puro dasal. Hindi tayo puro dapat simba lang. Meron dapat tayong konkretong ginagawa din para makatulong sa ating kapwa. So yun ang isang nakita ko dito. And then yung iba pa, ng ilang mga tradition, passion for example, ang pagkakaiba nito, naging modernize yung iba. Di ba? May mga rap nga na version ng pasyon eh. Bakit nila ginagawa yan? Para maka-attract daw ng mga kabataan. Which is, I think, effective. Because even the young people today are very much aware of the passion. Na noon, na tradition, hindi mo talaga maintindihan eh. Yung iba nga dyan talaga parang, I don't know, baka Spanish pa eh. O kung Tagalog man, malalim na Tagalog. So yung mga kabataan parang isolated sila, hindi namin alam yan eh. So yung iba naman na very creative, gawin natin na appealing sa mga younger generation. Kaya ngayon, mapapansin ka, maobserbahan mo, bakit parang rap? Kasi kinikater nila nga yung mga mas nakababata sa kanila.
But Father, also during this Holy Week, penance is a central theme that Catholics reflect on. Di ba po? Nandyan po yung extreme acts sa Pilipinas, yung mga self-flagellation or yung reenactment ng crucifixion. Father, ano po ba ang stance ng simbahan doon sa mga extreme acts of penance na tinatawag?
Ang extreme acts of penance katulad ng crucifixion, pati yung self-flagellation, hindi naman yan nire-recommend ng simbahan. Kasi ang unang-unang dapat maintindihan dito ng mga gumagawa niyan, kung ang aim nila is kapatawaran ng kasalanan, ito lang po ang gagawin para mapatawad ng kasalanan. Number one is magsisi ka. Well, dapat may acceptance, may admission, may ownership ng pagkakasala. Pagsisihan mo yan and then lapit ka sa pare para mangumpisal. Yung pare, bibigyan ka ng absolution. Right there and then, may kapatawaran na ng kasalanan na nangyari sa iyo. Okay, pero yung pagpapapako sa krus, hindi na naman dapat ginagawa yan kasi yung ginawa ni Jesus na pagpapako at pagkamatay sa krus, sobra pa sa sapat yun. Ang tawag namin dito sa theology, it's a once and for all sacrifice. Kaya hindi na dapat na ulitin. Kasi napatawad ka na sa kasalanan mo, tinubos ka na sa kasalanan mo, at naipagkalob sa yung buhay na walang hanggan. Ang pwede na lang gawin ng isang tao, yun nga, magsisi, may ownership, magsisi, punta ng pare mong pisal para yung pagkakasala na yan ay mapapatawad. So, we do not recommend it. We do not suggest it. Okay? Mahalaga na lang na yung other forms of sacrifice. Wag naman yung extreme. Ano yung other forms of sacrifice? Alam mo, nag-pilgrimage ka. Paano ka nag-pilgrimage? Huwag kang sumakay. Maglakad ka. Okay? Yung paglalakad mo, sakripisyo yun. O di kaya, mag-fast ka, mag-abstain. Ayan ay talagang ini-endorso ng simbahan, fasting and abstinence. And then, yung almsgiving, di ba, that's also a form of penance, na tumulong ka sa nangangailangan, magbigay ka ng pagkain sa mga nagugutom, o di kaya, sabihin na natin yung corporal works of mercy, mahalaga din ito, bumisita ka sa may sakit, bumisita ka din sa mga nasa bilangguan. These are examples of sacrifices na pwedeng gawin ng isang mananampalataya. At kalimutan na natin yung pagpapasa ng krus, yung pagpapapako sa krus, then yung self-flagellation nga na binanggit pa kanina.
Well, and finally, Father, as we observe Holy Week this year, what are some questions that Filipino Catholics can ask themselves during this period, and what does the CBCP hope Filipino Catholics will take away from this year's Holy Week?
Okay, very basic siguro yung tanong, how am I as I relate with my God? Okay, how is my relationship with God? Di ba? And then of course, yung isa pang tanong dito, part ng kanilang reflection siguro, how am I conducting myself when it comes to the practice of my faith? Kasi dito kasi yung sistema na katoliko ka, mananampalataya ka, pero wala ka naman din ginagawa para patunayan mo na isa kang katoliko. Ito nga, i-relate ko na lang din sa election. Ang usual na sinasabi ng mga tao, bakit yan? Magnanakaw yan, babaero yan, galing naman yan sa Catholic schools. Hindi ba tinuruan yan? Di ba? So, ganun ang usual na thinking nila. Well, hindi po kami nagtuturo na magnakaw ka. Hindi kami nagtuturo na mga lunya ka. Mga bawal nga ito. Yung nga lang, naturingan ng Katoliko, pero baka nga sa practice natin, hindi na nare-reflect yung ating pagiging Catholic. So, two basic questions, I think, very essential yun na tanungin natin yung ating mga sarili. And then, how do we envision this Holy Week celebration? Ano kaya yung mga pwede pang gawin dito, takeaways dito? Ang palagay ko, mahalaga talaga dito yung interior disposition ihanda. At ano yung interior disposition na to na katulad ng ginawa kahapon sa Palm Sunday celebration, are we ready and open to have Jesus enter into our life? And ano yung implication niyan in a more practical sense? Kasi kapag bahagi ng buhay mo si Jesus, abay, bakit ka naman gagawa ng mga kalokohan sa kapwa mo? Okay, bakit ka gagawa ng mga bagay na hindi ayon sa dikta at turo ng Diyos mo? So palagay ko kapag halimbawa ito ay nasagot natin, na-imbibe natin, and unti-unti patungo doon ang direction natin, baka maging maganda ang mundo na ginagalawan natin.
Well, we truly appreciate your time and insights. Father Jerome Ceciliano, maraming salamat po for joining us this morning on Morning Matters. That was Father Jerome Ceciliano, Executive Secretary of the CBCP's Committee on Public Affairs. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Now, in other news, Pope Francis briefly appeared at the end of the Palm Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Square. The 88-year-old pontiff interacted with the crowd before greeting everyone, quote, "Happy Palm Sunday, Happy Holy Week." Pope Francis is recovering from double pneumonia after staying in the hospital for 5 weeks, the longest in his 12-year papacy. But it still remains unknown whether he will be participating in upcoming Holy Week activities. And that's today's episode of Morning Matters. Sitting in for Gretchen Ho, I'm Pauline Verzosa. We are One News, all sides, all the time.